Right, here I am dressed as Repo Man in 2019. And if you're a regular watcher here on What Culture of my content, you know I really like Repo Man. So sometimes I dress up as him. That is called continuity. And now I've just explained to you. So if you've never watched before, you're up to date. And because it's a nice, simple story, you're not gonna get confused. Over the last few weeks though, so many things have happened in WWE that makes absolutely no sense that we can no longer ignore them. Or we can, there's nothing wrong with ignoring them, but that probably means they're not gonna change. And honestly, when we go through them, you will see something has to change. Stay down mask. Fueled forward by that ridiculous segment on SmackDown with Alexa Bliss where she just did a 180 given everything that she'd done on Raw, WWE officially no longer makes any sense. Why? Exposed. Here's why. Right, we are going to go through this point by point, but the main thing I want you to keep in your mind as we go is imagine this from the perspective of somebody who only watches WWE programming from whatever comes out of their TV. They don't watch this, they don't go on wrestling news sites every 5 minutes, they take it at face value, and that is all they know. So point one, Mojo Rawley. His trajectory over the last few months goes like this. There was a man who was very upset and he was looking in the mirror and he was shouting at himself, I presume, because he wasn't happy with his lot and he felt like he'd let himself down. That sent him completely crazy to the point he decided to draw blue goop on his face, and WWE gave him an opportunity to wrestle Apollo Crews. He beat Apollo Crews, and that probably shifted his self-worth up a notch or two. And after that, we never saw him again. I mean, what is anybody meant to do with that kind of information? The only bit of detail we got was from Renee Young when she said, oh, well, I bumped into Mojo Rawley in the back and he told me the reason he draws blue goop on his face is it's supposed to represent his failure or something like that. That doesn't give us any story implications. That's not a narrative. When you hear something like that, you call someone and say, you better come down here. I think we have a crazy person hanging around. And let's say you enjoyed all that as well and you wanted to see where it went. 1 week he was there and the next he just wasn't. And for some reason, nobody, ironically, was asking why. If it was the real world or things had been in place to make sure this didn't happen, somebody would be asking why. And this is doubly true when it comes to Sasha Banks and when it comes to Lio Rush. Again, we know that there's stuff going on behind the scenes that has utterly derailed their career. But not everybody knows that. And if you don't, you saw Sasha Banks lose her tag team women's title and just decide to give up, I guess. And Lio Rush was the spokesperson, the mouthpiece for Bobby Lashley, and he just vanished as well. And did Bobby Lashley say anything? No. Apparently Bobby Lashley doesn't even care. I mean, you could come up with the ridiculous scenario that Lio Rush was so small, Bobby Lashley just assumed he fell down a hole, but that's still pretty now, isn't it? What the hell would the world have done if that happened on a sitcom like Friends? I know that's not the most topical reference in the world, but in my head, it's funnier. If you tuned in 1 week and Ross wasn't there and all the characters were tiptoeing around, obviously trying to do anything but mention Ross, what would Monica do? That was her brother, Monica and Ross Geller. And Monica's like, I don't have a brother. You would sit there on the couch and you would point the finger like, this is one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. They're insulting me as the viewer. I know Ross was there. I saw him last week and the week before that and the week before that and in the other 72,000 episodes because Friends never ends. It would be burned by critics and fans alike, and rightfully so. You can't disrespect your audience all the time. Eventually they will fight back. We mentioned Alexa Bliss at the start, but that's even worse than I let on, because the news story that WWE came up with before they burned that into the ground was that Nicki Cross and Alexa Bliss were going to team up to try and take down the Iconics. You remember, it even seemed like Alexa had turned face on a recent episode on Monday nights. But even before we got to that point, it was utter gibberish, because before this, it was Becky Lynch and Nicki Cross becoming friends. They wanted to take down the Iconics. But all of a sudden, it just shifted gears. Becky Lynch then decided that she wanted to go punch Lacey Evans and Charlotte Flair in the face, and fair point, that does make sense because she's hated them for ages. But why all of a sudden did that one stop? Someone explain it to me, write it down, because I don't know. It was a waste of time, and it's the same with Charlotte and Lacey themselves. They were having a good time, they were sipping some tea together, being classy ladies, and then later on, Lacey just punched Charlotte in the face. Okay, great. I'm glad you had a friendship for all of, what was that segment? 47 seconds. The Miz completely left Shane McMahon alone after he fell out of his clothes during a steel cage match, which makes The Miz a double arsehole because Roman Reigns came to his aid all the time, and now that Shane McMahon is beating up the big dog, The Miz is nowhere to be seen, and Samoa Joe went from being really enraged that his shoulder was up in Money in the Bank and therefore he shouldn't have lost his US Championship to telling Rey Mysterio that he should have it back because Rey is now injured. Again, another change just because. And I know we're being pedantic and pulling at straws here, but come on, like you have to make sure all these things add up. Otherwise, you do have people tuning out. And don't tell me it's not a problem, Mask Down. Don't tell me it's not an issue, because look at the ratings. They do go down week in, week out, and a big reason is because you can't make heads or tails of it. Stories only exist within a 3 hour, if you're talking about Raw, or a 2 hour, if you're talking about SmackDown bubble. So how is that even episodic anymore? WWE likes to call their programs, the longest running episodic TV shows ever, but it's not episodic because you don't have episodes, you just have standalone things where stuff happens and then you get 7 days later and none of it matters anymore. Then there's the Raw Tag Team Champions of Ryder and Hawkins who are AWOL and their one-time contenders, the Viking Raiders, Warriors, or whatever the hell they were called by the end of it. The last time I saw, was it Ivan and Ivar or Eric, or whatever the stupid name was, they were being set up to take those championships, but instead I guess they decided to get in a boat and go pillage some town, because that's what Vikings used to do. It's continuity gone bad, and while on the surface it may not seem like that big a deal, I guarantee you that it is chipping away at your subconscious to the point you decide, I can't be bothered with this anymore, it's too exhausting, and it's just illogical. You have to have narratives that link together, otherwise why even bother starting to begin with? You can't have the beginning of a story and a beginning of a story and a beginning of a story with no end. It's why everything at WrestleMania 35 worked. Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch and Kofi Kingston all had satisfying payoffs to the narratives that were being told. What WWE really needs is somebody that keeps an eye on all of this and pipes up anytime an idea is suggested that would knock an old one off course. And even if you come up with the best new concept ever that is going to turn your business around, just make sure you wrap the old ones up. It's not hard. You can even have someone like Emelina. Remember you did that with Emelina? She walked out and went, yeah, I don't want to be Emelina, so now I'm not. Okay, it was utter garbage, but at least I knew what the score was. Otherwise, I'm stuck on the train forever, and I don't want to be on the train. At the moment, the train can really, really suck, and it offends me a little bit. I'm like, why did I invest? It's boy who cries wolf. I invest, and you don't give it to me, and then eventually I decide, well, it's not going to happen. I'll go play Tiddlywinks. I'm sure there's more than this as well, and please do sound off in the comments and make your voices known. And I also know this is nothing new. Take, for example, the lockbox at WrestleMania 32. We still have no idea what Vince McMahon was going on about. Then there's King of the Ring 1999, where that briefcase magically went up in the air, and although it was implied it was the big boss man, it was never made 100% fact. And of course there's GTV. Who was in charge of GTV? There are ideas out there. It was meant to be Tom Green, although it was probably Goldust. But again, we don't know. You're allowed to speculate 20 years later. It just feels worse now because it's even affecting nothing narratives. No matter where you are on the card, you have no idea what you're going to be doing, even if someone lays out a long-term story, because everything can be changed, well, before the show, sometimes when the show is even going on. Again, just start tying them in, and I promise you it'll be a step forward, and it'll be a step that people appreciate. Even the 24/7 championship, which is a bit crazy and all over the place, has some sense of, well, there's a thread tying everything together, and it works. I know that R-Truth is the champion. I know throughout the week he's always watching his back because someone's trying to get him. I know that Drake Maverick would like it, and I know that every time EC3 is in one of the skits, he would rather take his head and smash it into a brick wall. He never seems that happy. And if you don't do that, this is the equivalent, and as you can see, it's just absolute poppycock. A man was walking down the road and he saw his car and he tried to get into his car. Then the fish got out of the water and realized it had legs and decided it wanted to take over the world. Brad Pitt looked out of the plane and wondered to himself, I wonder if I can jump from a plane to the ground. I mean, I am Brad Pitt. I am a super celebrity. I think I can do anything. And then Lionel Messi went to bed realizing that he'd had a good day after playing on his Xbox One as himself, because he, of course, is in a mountain that managed to take the lives of some climbers that wanted to get to the top. See, that is what a WWE story is like these days. You get one part, but then another part comes in, and you recognize one person's name, but it doesn't tie into the third person's name, and by the time you get to the end, you look back and you go, you know what, I have absolutely no idea where we started, and I have absolutely no idea where I finished. do you know what? I think I'll go watch New Japan, or I think I'll go watch All Elite Wrestling. I don't want to do that. I want them all to be good. I want WWE to be the best WWE it can be, because WWE does offer me entertainment that nobody else does. But right now, it's too trigger happy. It's too shotgun crazy. It's all over the place, and sometimes it makes me sad. And sometimes it makes me just have a Repo Man just because I want to make a point. I miss Repo Man. Maybe Repo Man is the answer. Can we bring back Repo Man? Repo Man 2019? I'll do it. Look, I got the gear, got my cheap mask and my Repo Man t-shirt. What else do we really need? That's how everybody else comes out. Don't get costumes anymore in wrestling. Everyone just comes out with wet hair and black tops. I don't have hair, but I can do the rest. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you think about all of this. And I know my voice is going, I apologize. Like, share, and subscribe. Head over to whatculture.com, read yourself some articles, follow What Culture on Twitter, What Culture WWE, and watch more videos here on What Culture Wrestling. I promise they'll make sense. My name is Simon from What Culture. This was the Why series. And right now, I am gonna go write a story about a bear that flies to the moon and becomes president of the world. And then you'll see it on Raw in around about 6 weeks' time. I'll see you soon.